We can hear you just fine here. I mean, isn't it the same mic that's coming through Discord? So, mhm. Oh, there's a different, maybe a different slider for OBS, or try add audio source, maybe.
Work? Okay, I think that's working there. So hopefully they can hear us on the stream now. We had a minor microphone issue. Let us know if that sounds okay, Joel, when you get a second. Where were we in our slideshow? So we just covered the upcoming free classes. So this is just a brief slide about WordCamp and ScriptCamp and all these different skill camp servers. You can see we have a bunch of different ones you can join. Some of them we haven't had classes in yet, and they're still growing. We're still finding instructors and topics for us to cover classes on, but we are all part of Skill Camp, which is a nonprofit that offers free and low-cost classes to learn new skills and reach your life goals. Okay, can somebody tell me if the stream volume is working? Joel, does it sound okay? Using the built-in mic on OBS, we hear you, but it doesn't sound good. So the blue snowball mic is just not wanting to connect, and it's using my laptop's mic. I should just add a bullet point on this list. Has no idea how to work the microphone. Let me just leave this screen up for a second as I try to.
So when you add the source, try selecting a different source, maybe.
Okay, wait,
I
I
think I
think I
got it.
got it.
How about, I think that, yeah, I should have sound on the nice quality microphone now. Somebody can confirm that for me in a second. Again, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so Joel will let me know about that. But here's an overview of the upcoming boot camps. We have Pilot, 6 weeks, starting July 16th. So that one has already wait, is it past the 16th now? Yeah, that one already got started, but we're that will be on Sundays 10 to noon. Novel Boot Camp will start in August. That will be Saturdays 12 to 2, and then this feature boot camp in this current slot is Fridays 6 to 8, and that's going to be starting now. So next 8 weeks will be writing your whole script. Okay, I'm told the sound now sounds okay on the stream. Sorry, stream people. All right, let's keep going. Membership details. Remember to get unlimited subscription if you want to keep just attending as many classes as you want on any skill camp server. This comes with over 100 hours of different events every month. We are having a little trouble with the video library right now. We should just let you guys know, as we just have a brand new version of our website just rolled out. So let us kind of work that out for a minute. But once that's fixed, then you'll have access to recordings of every previous class. And on our YouTube channel, even now, you can find tons and tons of recordings of previous classes. So this also comes with things like proofreads, consultations. You get big discounts on these. And you also get script coins, which you can use to get table reads, where everyone gathers together, reads your script, and gives you feedback. Yearly subscription is just $19 a month. So we are at week 1 of this course. We are on 1 of 8. So your first draft is intended to be finished by September 15th. If you follow all the steps, it's okay if you fall behind or if you don't make certain deadlines or things like this. There's no grades and you're not going to be kicked out of the course for not hitting a deadline. But I would approach this with this kind of bootcamp mentality where you're like, it doesn't matter if the pages are good or not. I have to just hit the gym and put the reps in and get those pages down every single week. Not worrying about quality. We're trying to push past this prohibitive perfectionism that so many people get caught in. And trying to make sure you finish script after script after script, because the 3 things you need to really be doing are reading, professional work, writing as well as you can, and moving on. This third skill of moving on means ideally you're moving on when you have finished projects, but even if you have not finished them, you will find that time where you have realized that you've done all that you can and you move on to the next thing, because you need to write thing after thing after thing and turn yourself into this kind of machine that is entirely tuned towards producing script after script. You must become a script generator, a script machine. So we're not trying to pick masterpieces or things that you've been working on for a very long time. Ideally, Don't try to pick something that you'll dishonor your family legacy by getting wrong, or you'll not do the justice to someone's life story, or some really important, heavy, weighty, like vital event in history. You should pick something that keeps you excited and interested for the 8 weeks of the class, and then you will have an easy time sort of moving on, whether or not you did a fantastic job. Okay, so we're on week 1, logline and sketchbooks, so we'll be starting sketchbooks right after we finish with this slide. If you have not already started yours, then you will be starting that now, and you should just be having the sketchbook open, working on that constantly throughout pretty much every class. I would always have it open in another tab, so you can be working out problems, writing down questions, and figuring out what exactly you are trying to make, and trying to whittle down at this, the idea starting as this really big blob of amorphous things that, like possibilities. You're trying to sort of whittle and cut away at it until you reduce everything, take away everything that the movie isn't, and you really zero down onto a clear and high concept premise that feels engaging in its own right. It's one single sentence that's going to express what is this movie about, who would maybe want to go see this, and what kind of fun can we expect to have here. That's what the logline is. Next week, we're looking at breaking the story. So that's structure, and that's going to be story beat summary, is what we're going to try to be finishing by the end of that week, which is a list of all the major scenes in your story. It doesn't have to be absolutely everything, and they don't have to be perfect, but the story beats outline are going to be those major events in roughly the order that you want them to happen in, and they're going to be filed away under those proper structural headings to prove that you sort of have placed them at the right moments, and you know exactly what the effect of those dramatic moments is going to be. Following that, you move into scene cards. Scene cards is an expansion of the story beats outline. It's a full paragraph of text for every scene that expresses essentially who is this about, what are they trying to do, what tactics do they use to try to get that goal, what is the result, and how do we transition into the next moment from there. And that is going to build you a really solid roadmap of what the entire movie is going to look like, and you're going to flesh out essentially what happens on every single page before we start. We start on week 4 beginnings. That's August 11th, when you're going to go to pages, meaning you actually move from pre-writing and outlining into the pages themselves. So you don't need to download screenwriting software of any kind until we get to that week. But from August 11th, you're going to be writing about 20 to 25 pages a week. So I would set a pace for yourself of maybe 4 or 5 pages every weekday. You can settle for a little less than that. If you only get 2 or 3 done on some day, that's okay. But try to be writing a little bit at least every weekday to try to keep up with those deadlines and finish the movie then in 4 solid weeks of writing. We promise it goes much easier once you actually have nailed down what happens on every page, and the more you solve this battle of what needs to happen and how exactly does it happen, the more comprehensively that you solve that problem, the more you have addressed the main cause of what stops people's momentum, which is just, I don't know what needs to happen next, or I don't know how to connect what happens next to the rest of the story, and that just kills your drive to finish, and it's what leads to people abandoning projects. So if you've never tried this really organized, fastidious, methodical approach before, I highly recommend you give it a shot, and you can change it as you go and modify this process and find what works for you. But this is a class where your goal is to sort of learn how you organize and learn how to get organized, and to start conceiving of these very long story documents. 100 plus pages, 90 to 100 pages is not exactly an easy thing to keep coherent and engaging and interesting in every single scene on every page, giving us a reason to keep reading and to keep going. But your goal is to try to not produce perfect versions of that, but to organize yourself so that eventually you will be able to get better and better at this. And by completing project after project, you will build those skills necessary to become, again, not the person that has written the perfect thing, but the generator of unlimited scripts. Okay, so that was a lot of words I just said. We should, let's start. Let me just go to our sketchbook slide before we look at the overview of this class. So let's just open up Google Drive and just make your sketchbook now if you have not already. If you have, I would open it. And if you haven't filled these things out, then you should put at the very top, we have title, genre, logline, and comps. Title, genre, logline, comps. I think we know what the basics of these are. Title, if you don't have a title yet, you can put working, untitled, unknown, whatever. Genre, you should try to pick 2 things. Don't mash 100 things together and pretend like we're going to know what that is. Don't combine more than 2. Just, pick one as the sort of basis, and then one is to sort of clarify the tone. If it's like a horror comedy, we don't need to add in a bunch of other genres. Just because it has dramatic moments doesn't mean it's a horror comedy drama. You know what I mean? So try to pick 2 things and reduce it as much as possible just to those. We have logline, which is that one sentence expression of what your story is about. And we will go over more of how to specifically format and think of these today. So if you have some early idea of what it might be, you can write that down. Then we have comps, which are comparing your movie to others. In this way, you're clarifying what your objectives are in writing this. So, for instance, there's comedies that come of many, many different tones and shades and varieties, but you can help clue us into what you specifically are trying to do if you tell us which comedies yours is trying to be like. We have like a Mel Brooks kind of comedy. If you pick like a Mel Brooks comedy and a Leslie Nielsen style comedy, people are going to expect a very broad kind of wacky tone. Whereas if you're picking something more like an Alexander Payne movie, like, Sideways or something like that, like a more low key, more kind of deadpan comedy, people are going to expect something else. So it's to help set people's expectations properly and to tell us what your intentions are for that piece. So we will get more into all these separate things later. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to look at overview of the entire class right now. So we'll start with introductions, where we'll just ask, who are you? What are your goals? What would you like to accomplish? What are you trying to write? What are any ideas that you have, or any writers you want to be like, or anything like this? Anything you're curious about, or objectives of what you want to learn specifically? Then we can go into ground rules and suggestions on how to choose your idea, just the sort of idea you should be choosing. We have logline basics after that, and we're going to pretty soon into the class. I'm going to say like just before the hour mark, or right around the hour mark, I'm going to ask to share our loglines. And because there's a bunch of people here, we'll get through as many as we can. I can't guarantee we'll get to absolutely everyone, but we'll try to give feedback on every logline that you guys share to get it into shape by the end of class today, so that you're ready to start on your further development of this script during this upcoming week. What else? So we'll have that feedback. We'll look at a little bit about premise. How do we choose a premise, and what is a premise, and why specifically are you choosing this story to tell? High concept versus execution dependent, which is sort of this continuum of how we package ideas and how you kind of have to incorporate this almost, it's almost like you're coming up with how you might market the movie right off the bat. Just a very quippy way to describe it is helpful at the very start, because if you have a very simple way to describe it, that means that the story is simple enough to be understood in just a couple words, or just one single sentence. That's kind of at the basis of this idea of high concept, is that you want to be able to very simply and clearly communicate what this is, what kind of fun the audience would be having in this one story, and what is the kind of inherent hook, what's the irony here, what is the thing that we are latching onto that says this promises to be an engaging, entertaining situation. Sketchbook, we won't go way too into how to fill it out, so I think I'll just address that right after we do introductions. We will have time towards the end to post revised loglines, and we'll try to get everyone as complete as you can on the logline. So that's a lot of what we're going to be doing today is logline work. So I would just have that ready to share. And again, apologies if we cannot get to you. We are going to try to get to as many as we can, but there's just more than 15 people in the room. Okay, it looks like some folks might be having some technical problems seeing the stream. That might be due to, your connection quality. You may need to just disconnect and reconnect to the room. Might work. You can let us know in the chat if you're still having trouble with that. Also, let me just link the slideshow in the chat with you guys so you can follow along on the slideshow itself if you're not able to use the video. Here you go. Okay, we are currently on slide 9, moving on to slide 10. So, slide 10, let's go into discussion portion so you can tell us about yourself now. Feel free to introduce yourself, speak up, raise a hand, or use the text to tell us who are you, what are you trying to learn, what are you trying to write, what are your specific objectives, have you written scripts before, and if not, if this is something you're excited about, nervous about, feel free to share whatever you want. Tell us something exciting you read lately, or just feel free to share. Let me call on Joel. Go ahead, Joel.
Hiya, so I'm Joel, and I have never actually finished a screenplay before, despite me sort of doing it as a hobby on and off for a couple of years. This is a... Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, cool. My kind of habit of continually changing in volume. Yeah, so for various reasons. But this is a feature that I want to write. Oh wait, no, that wasn't what you asked. Yeah, so I've started writing a couple stories. I've got a bunch of stories on my mind already. But yeah, not actually finished any. And I think I've read 2 or 3 prose scripts, not many.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing. Hopefully we can finish your first script in this class. You can get that extra boost that you need, keep the momentum up, and get all the way through to the finish. And start reading a lot more too. Of course, super important. And I think that the more scripts you read, the more you will be motivated to finish more and to finish project after project and just get better and better. So thanks so much for joining. All right, let's ask Dakota. Go ahead, Dakota. Wait, was that who requested to speak? There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. My name's Dakota, and I've been, gosh, how long has it been? Wow, 10 years. 10 years this month. I've been writing scripts that long already. Wow. I have done several features and several shorts. I've mostly been on the production side of things in terms of the film industry. I've done basically everything. But in terms of the writing part, I've written at least one feature and several shorts. I have read, gosh, Billy Wilder, Mank, all of the classic, the guys that people know, like or the people that everybody should study. Mankiewicz, the guy that wrote the Sweet Smell of Success, The Apartment, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Singing in the Rain, The Big Chill. A lot of dialogue heavy and action heavy scripts. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Dark Knight, Ratatouille, Fantastic Mr. Fox. I've read a lot. I've read a lot. I'm really excited because I haven't tackled script writing in a new way in a long time. I've read the Hollywood Standard second edition, Christopher Riley, a lot. Like I've basically memorized that at this point. So I have a lot of the knowledge there, but in terms of like structuring it in a very specific way, haven't done that in a long time. Outlining is completely, it's not something that I personally have done really, and I don't really know anybody that really does any really. We didn't really go through that, to be honest, in film school. It just wasn't something that happened. So it'll be cool and very interesting to go through a more structured, regimented way of doing it. Super excited. Can't wait to learn. And it's going to be fun. I'm really excited about this.
Thanks so much, Dakota. Yep. Hope you can, even if not everything in the process or any one structure is exactly to your liking or works perfectly for you, hopefully you can adjust and modify it and just find your own sort of process, your own way to finish things and to finish the next thing and the next thing. Thanks for sharing. We have a few more hands raised. Come on up when I invite you. Welcome.
Hey there. My name is Carlos. I've been writing for a few years on and off, yeah, I've written like a decent amount, couple screenplays, couple pilots, and excuse me, a couple features. I mean, and as far as goals, my big thing is just what I'm sure a lot of people are hoping for here is, but just to write consistently, and just like to be able to pump out stuff, both like schedule things and personal like personal commitments, all that kind of stuff gets in the way of it. So I'm hoping that this will give me a chance to like have a more focused, kind of like goal-oriented approach. I've read a handful of proscripts, and like every time it's super inspiring and really exciting. So I want to get to a point where whether or not they're of good quality, I'm actually writing enough scripts that I can start to genuinely compare the stuff I'm doing to professionals, to other people here, and anything else, because right now it's just not nearly enough. But I am really, really excited for this and keep my fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yep, you got to sometimes, even if it takes waking up an extra hour early or staying up an extra hour late at night, people find all kinds of creative ways to find the time to get those pages done during the day. It's not that you absolutely have to do those things, but sometimes when you have enough going on in your life, you have to make certain concessions in order to find just that time for those few pages. But the more you do it, the better you will get at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much. Let's do 2 more hands raised. Go ahead, Lalo.
Hello, guys. Sorry for annoying you, but I got to introduce myself. Well, I'm Lalo, Eduardo. I'm just a Venezuelan guy, so I'm not like in the same sphere that you are with the VGA and all that stuff. But my writing goals are simple. I want to finish. I want to taste the idea how to make a feature, how to write something, how to understand this world and enjoy it. I read it before, of course. I try to write like short film, write some just to English to send you some feedback. And I read prose scripts like once a month, or like so, that's something where I don't know how to say it. I need to watch the film many times and then read the screenplay to be completely comfortable reading the dialogues and reading all to enjoy it or finishing.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. I recommend trying to read 3 scripts a week. If that's too much, or especially if you're reading them in a second language, maybe 1 script a week would be a bit more reasonable. But I'm sure you'll find lots of things to enjoy.
Oh, but I came here to improve that, and I love the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are also I think we just added international feedback channel. So if you are writing in another language, especially, I think we do have the most Spanish speakers on the server of any other language, but we have other ones too. We have a channel just for sharing that work and getting feedback on if you're more comfortable writing in your own language and would prefer to get feedback on that. We can do that now, so check that out. Links are in the chat. Thank you, Nacho. Let's see. Chikira. Hey, Chikira, your mic is on mute still. You'll just have to unmute that.
Sorry about that. My name is Shakira. I'm currently at the fundraiser, but I am interested in more creative writing. And my writing goals are to figure out a structure for screenwriting. I know it's different from just simply a short story, so trying to learn that and also learn all the pieces of dialogue and action and specific drama. And I've written one before, but this is basically I'm a newbie, and I haven't read many proscripts. It's probably one. So just trying to make sure like I'm doing all the studying as well as writing. So thank you all.
Thank you. Any favorite filmmaker or writers that you enjoy?
I do enjoy Ava DuVernay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. So thank you so much for sharing. This is a good time for everybody while you're listening to these introductions to just be working your sketchbooks and working on these early versions of your loglines, just so everybody knows. Looks like we have one more hand raised from Terry. Hey, Terry, go ahead.
Hey there, sorry about that, I was on mute. Yeah, so I have completed a feature script in the past as well as a TV pilot, and now I'm undecided at the moment, but I'm either going to pursue a brand new feature script or look to revise my previous one.
Awesome, great. And so you are writing. Were you the one that was writing the script about the bug people, or there's like an animated story about bugs? Was that you?
Yeah, so I had a butterfly feature I was working on last year, and I think the next one that will probably be the one I want to revise. But I also am ambitious on getting that adapted story off the ground as well.
Nice. Oh yeah, we talked about adaptation stories just the other week. Thank you for sharing, Terry. All right. So, couple things. One, if a bunch of people, so yeah, a bunch of folks mentioned here they've read some pro scripts before. We got to get those rookie numbers up, and your goal is to start reading at minimum one pro script every week. We have lots of resources for you to find them. The best is what's called the Blacklist. We have a link if you just type !blacklist in the chat as a macro, then you can find a way to navigate to that, and you will be able to read lots of pro scripts that are going to give you a really good sense of what you're trying to create here. Most people don't grow up reading scripts. Most people don't read these day to day. It's not a hobby for most people, so you're never really going to learn the conventions and learn what's been done before and learn how certain things are done and how many pages they require and how to pull certain things off unless you do get really experienced at reading and analyzing these things. So there's really no way around this, and you can just try to read a couple pages a day if you can, whatever it takes, but I would try to break it up so you're reading at least one script every single week. Take notes on the pages if you want. Maybe in your PDF reader, just write down when different structural beats occur. That's a great way to just practice structure, is to identify these structural moments in other people's scripts. And you're not going to like absolutely everything, but maybe try just opening up 5 of them that sound kind of interesting based on the log lines in the guide documents. Just read the first few pages and just pick 1 or 2 to finish all the way through to the end. Try your best to really finish them. Pay attention. Read very actively. We will ask during the bootcamp, what have you been reading? What have you liked? What have you enjoyed? What have you noticed or learned? You don't have to, there's not right or wrong answers. It's not a test. We're just going to ask, what have you been reading? Also, just get used to sharing your ideas at early stages with fellow students and with me, just because it is going to be, a lot of writers are kind of shy about sharing work at the early stages, but it's the only way to get that feedback that will help the shaping of the much greater idea. Because this is why we start with the smaller seed of things like the log line and then just the sketchbook, and we're expanding out from there. So then when you're getting feedback on every step of that process, starting with the smallest thing, then moving up, then we're avoiding having to get those huge notes once you've turned in the final thing that's like, huge parts of this just don't work. So it's actually useful to get notes on early versions of ideas and water them and continue to let them grow, or however you want to think of it. And especially if you'd like to work in collaborative settings like with co-writers or in TV writing, you absolutely have to just be good at collaborating, compromising, taking notes, applying revisions. You're not ever going to be required to take notes that I give you in the class. I'm just trying my best to help you learn how to do this better. But this is a good time to practice receiving and working with notes. And thinking of that as a skill to improve just as much as writing is a skill. But the processing and the application of feedback is really essential to be working on and practicing too. We'd like you to use your real name if you're going to continue past just this first opening free week. You don't have to do this now, but if you want to come back for next week, if you're going to sign up, then make sure to just either change your nickname or let us know, so you're not called, Hello Kitty 420, whatever it is. We can use your real name, or you can use a nickname or something if you would really like to. Okay, how about the ground rules? So you want to choose a brand new idea or a major page 1 rewrite of something from before, but you don't want to pick anything that is going to impede your ability to finish this project in 8 weeks. And that's why almost all these rules are tuned to that specific problem of trying to clear the obstructions, which would make a project take longer than just this 8 weeks to write. The biggest one is going to be just this sort of perfection that comes from trying to adapt some source material that's really close to you or something that you really like. Something that's really important to you and that you just feel the need to get just right is going to cost you time in getting those things right. The more research that you have to do, it's going to add extra time at the beginning, so you probably want to avoid true stories and adaptations and historical scripts unless you are already an expert in that era. You just don't want to write time travel, just believe me. We've never once seen someone complete a time travel script in the bootcamp. It's really difficult. And beware of other kind of tricky sci-fi conceits like things like clones and parallel universes and stories that involve really complicated flashback structures, like a Gillian Flynn mystery that has like a bunch of different narrator characters at different points in time. Things like this are really tricky to pull off. Ensemble stories, really difficult to balance. So try to just pick the most straightforward, simple thing that you can that will keep you interested and excited for 8 weeks. We have a question from Paul. Should all our drafts be page 1 rewrites until the dialogue passes? No, they don't really need to be. I find it useful to start with a blank page at the when you're doing a brand new draft, but then you can copy and paste in scenes from your previous draft as needed. I just don't try not to let that be the default option that you go for. So you can think of that as a page 1 rewrite, but I don't really consider it to be a page 1 unless substantial changes are made to the outline and then you start from scratch. Looks like we have a couple other questions that I'll try to address before continuing in the slides. Is it acceptable if a script is based on an existing media but takes very loose inspiration and a lot of liberties with the characters, doesn't set up or continue from anything, and does not adapt any story arc specifically? I mean, yeah, that would be fine. We're just trying to really limit things that would add extra time in the writing of a script in this condensed time frame of 8 weeks. If you feel that that would not significantly expand that time frame for you, then go for it. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to do, but it seems like you know what you're doing, so if you think you can do it, give it a shot. We have a question from Carmen. What is a page 1 rewrite? That is when you start from page 1 and make really substantial changes, so much so that it's basically a whole new story. You're kind of scrapping everything and starting over. Like I mentioned in reference to a comment a moment ago, I usually don't consider it a page 1 unless we're making big changes to the outline and then starting over from scratch without copying and pasting in very many scenes from your previous version. Okay, what else? Let's finish this advice by just summing this up and saying pick some funny, weird concept. Take a big swing, something that is not going to be like absolutely impossible for you to pull off, but just something that grabs your attention and holds it and you just think is amusing. And you're just going to be working on building up these fundamental skills more so than you're trying to write a masterpiece. So don't put the pressure on yourself to come up with something that will be amazing on your very, very first try, because almost no one's first work of art in a brand new medium is amazing on their very first try. You'd have to be, an absolute virtuoso for that to happen, and it just doesn't really happen in this one, in this medium. There's a lot of really technical rules in this medium, and a lot of kind of just conventions and things that you have to learn, and you can learn so much academically, but then you'll learn even more from just reading scripts and just seeing what's out there and what's been done before and what has worked. So there's a good amount of research that you have to do just to get the sense of what's possible and what does really good work look like and feel like on the page. But don't put that pressure on yourself right now. Your goal right now is to write a draft in 8 weeks. Will the draft be good? No, almost certainly not. It's the first draft, and beyond that, no script has to be really good, and your goal is not to unearth a treasure chest full of gold. It's to run the laps and improve that and become the generator of unlimited scripts. So, hopefully we've had our sketchbooks open and you guys have been getting ready and working on these log lines. If you haven't opened your sketchbook and started on this yet, I would definitely do that now. In about 20 minutes, we're going to share log lines, but I'm going to briefly talk about what should go into a log line, how to make it as good as it can be, and what to be paying attention to here. So let me move right into just the explanation of what log lines are. So this is the central conflict of that movie, distilled down to just one single sentence. I've seen some successful log lines at 2 sentences long, but almost always, if there's a 2-sentence log line, the first question you will get is, why is this not one sentence? So most of the time, you can make it one sentence. We want to imply visual action and what the sense of what we're going to be watching your characters do and carry out on screen. What is standing in these characters' way? Like, what is the character's goal? What are they trying to accomplish, and how do they go about it? What sort of obstacles are going to get in their way, and what kind of fun can we watch in watching your character struggle with those obstacles and attempting to reach that goal? What happens if they fail, or what is the ticking clock or the thing that is adding urgency and motivation and stakes to our characters' goals? And then last, we may want to have some sort of sense of what is the boundaries or walls or inhibitions around this story. So we might say it takes place all over the course of one night, or this takes place all within this one guy's life, or this takes place all within 1 year. If there's some kind of frame to the story, it could be nice to have something like that in the logline too. So here's the templates. When or after inciting incident, also known as the catalyst. Completely interchangeably, I'll say inciting incident or catalyst. An adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. An adjective protagonist. So each of these fields has to be chosen pretty carefully. You don't always have to use exactly this formula. But if you don't know where to start, then these are just the major questions that we're going to want answers to. Questions like, what gets the story going, is the question of the catalyst. Questions like, who is this about and how are they going to change, is implied to us by your choosing the adjective for your character. Because often the adjective you choose will tell us who are they at the start of the story. If this is going to be about a miserly old man when he's visited by 3 ghosts, you know, then that tells us who your character starts the story as. And it gives us the suggestion of how they might change or what trait of theirs is going to be challenged as the story goes forward. So it might be some unique limitation of theirs or thing they're struggling with, or it could be a particular talent of theirs, some way that they use to solve their problems, some tactic, something that makes them unique, something that sets this apart and suggests what that internal journey might sort of be. So you're picking your description of your main character in such a way to tie them to the events of this narrative and make it clear why it's about this person specifically. We're not going to settle for just like a guy. A lady has to do this. When she wins the lottery, a lady must decide what she's going to spend the money on. Oh, there's a million things wrong with that story idea. To begin with, must decide something is kind of an internal process. We want to avoid framing your movie in purely internal terms. It shouldn't feel like it should be a conflict that can be resolved by your character just thinking about stuff, or usually by just talking about stuff or discussing stuff. There's the occasional exception to that, like courtroom dramas are kind of a highly dramatic situation, which are resolved by characters talking about stuff. But in most cases, just discussing things or talking about things or must choose between this and this, that's actually the subtext of your story that needs to be illustrated by your character's actions and the goals and the challenges they face and the goals that they attempt to pursue. So if it's something like my character must choose between his old life and in the big city and his new life in the small town, well, that's the subtext of the journey. Yes, that's like the basis of the internal journey, but you have to tell us what is the external journey. Oh, a guy from the big city goes to a small town where he meets the old sweetheart from his childhood, right? Except he's got a fiance back from the city. Okay, now we can see what the story is going to be. He's going on dates with both of them or whatever. He's getting, balancing this relationship with both of them. He needs to choose which one of them. That's like the finale of that story. But don't tell us that story is just a character needs to decide or choose something. You need to give us that sense of what we're watching people do. That's why this is a visual medium. And we say movies are about people doing stuff. Books can be much more about ideas, and plays can be much more centralized around people talking in these conversations, or, this very non-dramatic word, discussions, right? But movies are fundamentally about people doing stuff, and so we should not be in doubt as to what we are actually watching your character pursue physically in the world on the screen after reading your logline. Okay, hope that's clear on just the basics of loglines. I want to see if we have any questions before I go more into specifics of what makes loglines really work well. Any questions just on the essentials? And you don't have to share your logline yet. We'll post those in about 15 minutes, but I will take questions on these principles. If you're watching on a different site like YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Discord, we should still be able to see your questions and comments, though sometimes it does take an extra minute to do so. But if you are watching on those other places, you should come join us on Discord, which you can find the link to by going to our website, which is going to be scriptcamp.net. You can get that Discord link right up there in the top right. Okay, seems like we don't have any questions so far. So we're going to move into some more specifics of loglines, and as we are working on this, you guys should still just be developing your loglines on your page. Whether or not it's going to be perfect by the time you share it, just don't expect it to be perfect. Expect to get notes and revisions on it, whatever it is. You should always be anticipating that. Let's look at some more specifics here before we get into sharing the loglines. So, one, we want stories where the stakes are very clear and they are as high as they can be for your genre. Movies are almost always going to be about the most important events in your characters' lives thus far. We sometimes end with the sense that, okay, they're going to have way more or way bigger adventures after this, or maybe this is even the start of, like, is it their origin story sort of thing, where if that's the case, maybe this is just one of many adventures. But at least this is the most important events of their life thus far. There are rare exceptions to that in genres like slice of life or mumblecore, where it's just another day sort of thing. Or once in a while, maybe there's some way it can work. But for the most part, you have to look at your character stands to lose, or what stands to be threatened, or how big can they fail, and we need to pump those stakes up as high as you can, because movies are about big, important, life-changing events. So whether or not those, life-changing in a big way or a small way, that's up to you. Sometimes just having a fight with your girlfriend, or, a conflict with your best friend, or your mom, or something like that, can be really life-changing in its own way. Defining your relationships differently moving forward, things like this. Not every movie has to be about people with guns trying to shoot each other. If you are trying to write movies with people with guns shooting each other, you're in the right place. My specialties are horror, action, and thriller, and a lot of sci-fi and fantasy and things like this as well. But we are trying to build a community here where we have people of every genre interest. So no matter what genre it is that you're interested in, there are different genre groups that might be able to help you with the specifics of some genre more. Like, we have a romance writers group, because that is not really my specialty. We have a comedy writers group, which is, again, not really my thing. So check those out, and feel free to join any of our groups. Even if you are not an unlimited subscriber, you can still come by the genre group meetings week after week. One of the many perks of signing up, or being here for Script Camp, I should say. Paul says he's writing a Western, which is actually another favorite of mine. Big fan of those. I've written quite a few. Okay, so look for big stakes, as big as they can be for your genre. If it's going to be a movie about kids in middle school, then it should be about, the stakes could be as big as, like, your friend will invite you to a party. That might be a big deal for your character. Maybe that's as high as your stakes can be in your specific genre. Just pump them up as high as you can. If you're writing action, the stakes should be life and death. If you're writing horror, the stakes should be life and death, unless you have something way better. If you're writing a thriller, the stakes don't necessarily need to be life and death, but they should be very high, very intense, very personal, and keep us on the edge of our seats. Look for an idea that isn't way too big, because if your idea feels too big, then that's going to say it seems like you have too much story material, or too complicated of a world, or just too many characters, and this just seems like it'd be a better TV show. Or maybe it seems like it's a series of episodic situations rather than one specific situation. Like here, so just remember this: a movie is not a series of episodic situations. It's not a setup for a bunch of episodic situations. It is one specific situation that can only unfold in this one way. And because of that, we have to fine-tune our loglines very carefully to find the exact arrangement of elements that's going to make that premise really sing and really be clear. Something that might be useful when you're thinking of premises to look at Terry Rossio's word player columns, where he talks about this idea of the strange attractor, which is kind of like the promise of the story and the unique way that you are going to kind of fulfill it. Like, in trying to execute this vision in your head, like, it's not always enough to just go with your first version of how you think this thing might be expressed. You have to kind of narrow down and chip away at this thing and try different versions of the logline, or versions with just a few words tweaked, until you can get that actual result at the end. And like he talks about in the same article, how Shyamalan didn't even really figure out the ending of Sixth Sense until 5 drafts into the movie. Didn't even put that twist in place that made the whole thing come together until 5 drafts in. So you have to approach it with this mindset of these things will take iteration to become really perfect. The first version of this logline may not necessarily be the final version of it, but I'll just keep improving and making it as good as it can be, because as the core basis for a much bigger project, it's important to have that strong foundation at the start. You don't want to have a shaky foundation to as big a project as this. Okay, what else? Movies are visual and dynamic and about people doing stuff. We want tangible goalposts. So you need to say that your story is going to be tracked through visual action, and we should know what we're watching your character do on screen for 90 minutes, and we should be able to basically envision what some of those scenes in the middle of that story might be and how they might be fun. Different things are fun in different genres because different genres have vastly different appeal, but we should still, if we are a fan of that genre, it should sound enticing to us. And in terms of the hook, when we say things like the hook is why your fans will watch this even though they've seen a million other movies like this, because no matter what you're writing, if it's a creature feature, well, we've seen 1,000 trillion creature features. You have to imagine the interested audience has seen everything from giant mosquitoes to giant bears to giant bees to giant buzzards to giant whatever. So you have to say, I know you've seen a giant creature feature before, I know you've seen a lot of them, what specifically is the reason you'll come to this one? Okay, because I have an animal that you've never seen before. Maybe because I have a protagonist that you've never seen before, or some point of view, or some really cool new twist on the monster it's going to force our characters to react in some specific way. Maybe my creature feature is going to be about wasps that mind control people when they sting them. We've never seen that in a movie before, right? So it's helpful if you think of it's like this, but with this one extra twist. This is the thing that Ressier calls that crap plus one way of approaching premise. You don't have to think of it as crap. You can take something cool and then just use that as the basis. You can say, I want to do a movie kind of like Die Hard, and then add one other twist to it. Okay, it's kind of like Die Hard, but I'm going to set it in the future, and it's instead of being set in an office building, let's set it on a spaceship. Okay, now we have sort of one-man army action story set on a spaceship. Once you start adding a couple other unique things, it's not going to feel that much like Die Hard anymore, and it's totally valid to just start from this basis of, I want to write something kind of like this, and then just add 2 or 3 twists to it until you find some unique approach. That just might be a fun way to find something just to focus on for this 8 weeks. Find something you like, add a couple tweaks, see what you end up with. Okay, let's ask for any questions on loglines before we go into... I think I want to briefly do comps, and then we will share what we have. So any questions so far based on what we've talked about here? Question from Dakota. Go ahead.
Hello. So I've just been looking at examples of log lines as well, and something interesting that the Silence of the Lambs log line does is that it has the inciting incident last, basically. So in terms of just general structure, I know that there's different ways to do it, but what is a way to kind of make it more interesting? Because I know that you can basically put the inciting incident in the middle, at the end, or in the beginning, but is there, quote, a wrong way to structure it?
Is there a wrong way to structure a logline? I would say a wrong way is one that confuses your reader. If they read it and they don't get, if an experienced reader, let's say, reads it and they don't get what the story is about, or they misunderstand some fundamental element, then something's probably wrong. Like, a well-written logline should be pretty clear what your story is about to people that, I mean, assuming someone has basic literacy in what they are reading and what this form is, then we should understand the basics. I guess, yeah, I would give it the sort of like 5-person test. Tell it to 5 people and ask them to summarize it back to you or ask if they have any questions or if it's clear to them. And if they all seem like they get it, then your logline's probably fine. If somebody here and there doesn't understand some elements of it, it's okay. I think that you want to just make sure you're answering the major questions that we have, though. And if you're not answering them, then at least sort of implying what those answers are. So, like, I'm going to show you... I realize I might be going a little off track on your question, but I'm just going to show you a couple loglines of mine. So for some of these, like for all of these, I just started with the basis of that one template: when inciting incident, adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. But the more that I refined them and the more that I tried to like put them in different forms for different contests and stuff like this, then it became easier to sort of see how some of the stakes were implied. For instance, like on Peter and the Wolves, a sensitive boy in Nazi-besieged Leningrad must hunt down the cannibal that ate his friend. That's sort of what you're talking about, where the inciting incident is at the end. So you can do that if that works. I mean, I wouldn't try that unless there's a reason why you're doing it. It just made this flow a lot better, and I think that we are implying the stakes, which are, if he doesn't do this, the cannibal will eat him too. So I didn't feel the need to include that, in the same reason that you might not need to say, when she's attacked by a shark, a woman must fight the shark or be eaten by the shark. It's like, yes, we know what the shark wants to do. Anyway, I may have gone a little bit off the rails on answering this one, but I think this is hopefully just to illustrate there's the only wrong way to write your logline is in a way where the readers don't get it. And so you have to just you have to just test people sometimes. You have to just share and get feedback in order to assess whether or not that's the case. And then maybe just use a little checklist like that has some of these basic things like that we've been talking about here. Is there a tangible goalpost? Is there a sense of whose story is this? Try to just answer those basic questions, and if you can, and if people seem to get it, then you're fine, no matter what format it ends up being. You don't have to stick to a particular format.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was probably way too many words to answer that question. I'm realizing now. I think I over-explained that. I think Dakota gets it. So we have a question. Can we share loglines? Give us just like 5 minutes. I just want to explain a couple more things before we share loglines, because when we share loglines, we're going to want to include comps. So comps are... So yeah, when you share, try to put it in this format. It's going to go title, genre, comps, then logline. So title, if you don't have a title, you can say untitled or looking for title, whatever you want. Comps are this movie meets that movie. You're comparing your movie to two other movies, so we get a better sense of what you're going for in terms of story, content, and tone. So for instance, if you're going to write a historical action adventure movie and your two comps are Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean, we're going to expect that there are fantasy elements in your movie. So try not to mislead us by picking titles in totally different genres than what you're going for just because you feel that the themes are similar or something like that. You want to make this as clear and apparent as possible what the story is going to be. So I recommend maybe starting this from the standpoint of your first comp is going to be like in the world of this. So in the setting of this. And then the second comp is going to say we have the action of this. And that might kind of lead to you realizing if you're doing like Die Hard meets Commando or something like that, that's sort of like chocolate meets chocolate, you may realize that you need to actually maybe tweak a little bit of something about your premise to make it not feel really down the middle. So the comps can actually be an adequate way to test your premise at the very beginning and make sure that you're not writing something that feels like it's been something like this has been exactly done before. I mean, if you say it's like Harry Potter meets Narnia and it's a fantasy movie for middle grade, we're going to be like, all right, I feel like we've seen this. So your comps can be an indicator of how good the logline is going to be and who is going to want to read this and who's going to like it. So try to pick these carefully. The goal is not to show off or to pick something obscure and try to impress everybody, because you don't earn bonus points if no one has heard of the comps. They just have to look them up and then you sort of lose points, so to speak. So try not to show off or pick bizarre things. Pick things that people will know and that clearly illustrate what it is that you're going for. Okay, any questions on comps? And while you guys are typing or raising your hands, I'm going to put into the chat the format that you should post your loglines in. We're going to have title, genre, comps, then logline. If you don't have any of those ready to go, you can say unknown or just don't fill it in. But try to put those in if you can. We have a question. You write a comp as comparing your movie idea to existing movies. Yes, that's exactly right. So they should be movies that are pretty well known, and you shouldn't use comps that are like at least one of your comps should be a movie. You can use a TV show as one of them if you want to, but at least one. If you're writing a movie, at least one of your comps should be a movie. The other comp might be a show, or it could be something like nowadays we see maybe like a video game, or maybe a play sometimes in some weird cases, or a novel if it's a pretty well-known novel, but at least one of them, make sure it's a movie. A suggestion, yeah, so Joya asked, first comp is the world we're in, second comp is the action. Yeah, you can think of it that way. You don't have to use that. That's just like one possible way to approach it that I've had success with before. And if you don't know where else to start, you might try that, but you don't have to feel limited to that model. Any other questions on comps or log lines before we share? Okay, I see one person typing a question, so feel free to finish that, and I will answer that as soon as you put it in. Enter that in the chat. I think we are ready to start sharing log lines, so use this template and fill in the fields that I shared in the chat. Title, genre, comps, logline. When or after, inciting incident, and adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. Feel free to post these when you're ready. I'll give you guys a minute or two to do this, and then I'll start calling you up. We're going to mark them up and give feedback, and you're going to answer questions so that I can assess your intent with the script and try to help you shape this into the best version of what you're trying to make. I'll give you guys 2 minutes to post these, then we'll start in the order that we get them in. So we'll be starting with Dakota for sharing them right away. So make sure to share if you'd like that feedback today in class. Thanks, guys. I'll give you 2 minutes. All right, we are back with a bunch of log lines posted. Thank you so much for sharing these, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5, it looks like. I will get to as many as I can. Let's start with Dakota.
Hello.
Hey there. Why don't you read this out for us, and we'll get started.
Sure, I'm on my phone, so give me one moment to get back up to it. Okay, so the title is Trinca. It's a historical drama. The comps are the Battle of Algiers and Loving Vincent. And the logline is a politically dissident Czech animator must finish his final film before he is censored by the Soviet government during a revolution.
All right. Thanks for this. And yeah, I remember we talked a little about this during one of the previous classes. Is The Battle of Algiers a movie? I have not heard of that one.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, it is. It's from 1966.
Oh, okay. You can do that. It's just that's a pretty old comp. Like, and typically, it's helpful if you pick these if they're really well known. Maybe this is just a blind spot of mine, and this is a very well known movie. But just as a general tip for everybody, if you pick something older, make sure it's as well known as, I don't know, Back to the Future. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe not a problem
It is,
though.
it's
Maybe
good.
this is just a super fitting comp that just happens to be something I haven't heard of. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very fitting. It's about political revolution. Algiers is trying to gain independence from France. That's what the film is about.
Okay. A politically
Fantastic.
dissident Czech animator must finish his final film before he's censored by the Soviet government during a revolution. So you've done a much better job of just setting up the kind of basics of the era without going into too much detail here. So I think that's well done. Why does he need to finish the film, though?
Right. So generally, that's kind of my issue, is because a lot of it was he was trying to support a lot of it was supporting democracy, because the revolution was a democratic revolution to have democracy in Czechoslovakia, and the whole point of the film is to basically be dissident and to support the idea of democracy and to have creative freedom and expression in Europe. So that was the point of the film. That's why he made it. Because at the time there was no creative freedom in Eastern Europe until this guy made something. So in terms of why he needs to do it, it's because he understands the need of having creative freedom again. It's supporting democratization, basically, is what it is.
Okay.
In terms of how to put that in a log line, I'm not sure yet, because
Let me
it
ask
is
you
kind of-
this question that might help.
Mhm.
So he really made this movie and it came out, right? So he accomplished his
Yes.
goal?
Yes.
And as a result of
Well-
that, what happened?
The Prague Spring ultimately happened, and that failed, but it led to the West understanding what was going on in Eastern Europe at the time.
Okay. It still feels a little abstract the way that you're explaining it, I guess. When you say the Prague Spring happened as a direct result of this project, this film that he's making, I can get behind that if you can sort of frame it along those terms, like this is the thing that will push the culture into full revolution mode or something like that. Maybe, like, does that make sense, or is there something there?
Yeah, it does, and that's essentially what supposedly, like, it's definitely a factor in it for sure. There was a lot of things going on, of course, but yeah, one of the things that supposedly inspired the Prague Spring was this cartoon that this guy made.
Okay, so you're saying supposedly maybe it's part of it and stuff like this. I think for the purposes of this movie, in order for us to buy into these stakes, you have to say the nation is perched on the verge of revolution. This is going to be the straw or the match that sets it off. You see what I mean? Like, in order for, I think
right.
You're trying to stay very close to the actual history, which is commendable. But for the purposes of crafting a narrative, you may have to sort of like pick a lane a little bit and say, no, this is what caused the revolution to happen.
Right.
You don't have to lie. You just, in terms of expressing why is this actually important, just saying, well, he's trying to generally restore the idea of creative freedom doesn't sound like a movie, whereas this is a subversive film that will spark a movement does sound like a movie.
Right.
Does that make
Right.
sense and give you some ideas of how you might
Yes.
sort of frame those
Yes.
stakes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, it sounds cool. But believe me, I'm here for it, and it's a unique, true story, and I have never heard of this, and it sounds neat. And if you can frame it in that urgent of terms, if you can make it feel, it just needs to feel important that this has to happen. In the same sense that, like, I'm sure you've seen movies like The Imitation Game and things like this, where
Right.
it's like we really draw a direct connection between what this character is doing and the direct effect that it has, and we sort of might be combining certain people and sort of like creating a version of events where Turing is really pivotal in this specific way, like he saves this battleship or whatever, instead of just like and maybe that happened or maybe it didn't, I'm not sure, but you can see how like a scene where your character, as a result of his espionage, saves a battleship, as opposed to just saying, well, he generally contributed to the end of the war, is just a more concrete way of framing that story in cinematic terms. So
Right.
I hope I've probably, again, over-explained this, but I hope that makes sense, and that allows you to sort of just reframe this a little bit, tell us why this needs to happen, why is it important, what are the actual stakes.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's do our next one. Carlos, a dangerous celebration action comedy. Hey, Carlos.
Yes. Sorry. Hi.
No worries. Why don't you start us off with this one?
Yeah, like you said, a dangerous celebration. It's an action film. The comps, it's Die Hard meets the Nice Guys, and the log line: an aging hitman must escape his retirement party before his coworkers give him the ultimate send-off.
Okay, I'm in for this. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to make sure I understand. So, an aging hitman must escape his retirement party before his coworkers give him the ultimate send-off. So, let me ask a couple questions. So, The Nice Guys is a mystery noir type plot, right?
Yes.
Why is that one of your comps on this? Is just in terms of the tone, or is there some kind of mystery noir type plot here? It seems like there's no actual question as to what's going on.
Yeah, and I was struggling with this a bit because I initially had it as just action, but I like in thinking through the premise, I've been kind of going back and forth between action comedy, and so I thought like The Nice Guys might be a good kind of compromise, or like something like Die Hard is like a setting and tonal foundation with that sort of like lighter energy to it, that kind of keeps it from being super self-serious or self-important. I'll be honest, like it was really tough to think about the comp, so that's something I'm extremely.
You heard of the movie
changing.
called Red, like RED, Retired, Extremely Dangerous?
Yeah, is that the? Sorry, yes, I'm familiar. Yeah.
I think it's also Bruce Willis in that one as well.
Yes, it is, yeah.
That's like, what if team of old people were cool killer guys? So, and there's even a sequel, I think. So that might be a better. I would probably scrap both the comps. I would go with Red meets something else and find what makes this a little more unique as your second comp. Does that make sense? So
yeah, no, I like that a lot.
If we're starting with this basis of old guy hitman must escape his retirement party, his coworkers are all trying to kill him, meaning his assassin squad.
No, actually, although I appreciate you mentioning this because yeah, I'm realizing it now. It's like just kind of to be implicit that he's part of like an organization essentially, or that like he knows fellow hitmen, because that's like an environment where if there's anybody that would know about what you're doing, it's the people doing the same horrible thing. And then kind of just like that, it's.
So these aren't really
there's some sort of-
coworkers, if that's the case. Those are rivals.
I suppose so. Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Which
So
raises this question of why would you not think that was a giant trap where they're trying to kill you?
I at like a glance, I do prefer it as part of like some sort of organization.
You can do
which
that.
which definitely sounds like something that would need to be included here.
So if it's like in Hitman 47 type agency, you can definitely do that, in which case they would be straight up coworkers. But then it's going to be the question of why are they all turning on? Like, if this isn't the sort of thing that happens all the time, this is like a special case. Why him in particular? Did he make some kind of big mistake? Did he mess up in some way? Did he make somebody angry? Who is the one that turned on him is the question.
Okay, that's an interesting question, and I actually, if I were like chewing on the logic of this, like based off of what I was initially thinking, I suppose this would be something that's like routine essentially, and that's basically like the commitment you make when you join, right? Is that like you're going to, when you're finally done, then like you die so that you don't have any risk of revealing secrets or like that. And this guy in particular like chooses to be the one because there's been in this world, I would guess, many escape attempts, and then he's the one who I guess succeeds, but that's not unique.
Yeah, the thing this all adds up to is just a hitman is being pursued by his former employer and needs to shoot a bunch of guys, though, right? Like, it's not that there's anything terribly wrong with that. It's just that that particular setup and arrangement doesn't lead us to new set pieces that we haven't seen before necessarily. What you could maybe think is, like, if this is, imagine this agency, they have, like, a retirement plan. It's called the retirement plan, or retirement party, or something like that. And every spy, they get this, I mean, this still seems pretty obvious, but it's like, you get a great vacation when you finally retire from the agency. I mean, any hitman worth their salt would know that no other hitman who retired was ever heard from again, wouldn't they? But in any case, it might be, or maybe they have, like, a witness, like a protection program. If you mess up big time on a job, they send you on a trip. And then it turns out that trip is actually killing them or something like that, which might say we're going to have set pieces that are in this exotic location that you've picked for the trip or something.
Sure. Go ahead. That's a good point. Sorry, like I want to make it clear that like I want to give these characters credit where it's due, like they're not naive or anything like that. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because like in thinking about it now, I'm thinking about like Looper, right, where they're keenly aware of what happens at the end of it there. And so I suppose in that case, I'm beginning to see like the lack of internal stakes, and then like again like a distinct element to it. So
yeah, I would maybe use that. I think with his retirement party coming up ... A desperate hitman, trying to get out of this fate needs to blank and blank to get out of it. Think of something unique that your character can do. I kind of like the idea of when you're done with us, you get killed no matter what. Maybe there's something that you can, if you use that as the ticking clock or something like that, or maybe, try to make this a little more unique. There's nothing wrong with just having, like, you're not going to get penalized or a bad grade or whatever if your idea isn't unique enough. But I guess I would just suggest to try to find some arrangement of elements here that we haven't seen the exact thing before, and just will give you a little more fuel in terms of coming up with premise scenes. That will just help you make the movie better as you go through the process.
Gotcha. Are just out of curiosity, at a glance, or like at a thought, do you know of any other films like besides Looper that are kind of like that premise of like?
Have you seen?
I'd love to get some suggestions.
Have you seen In Bruges?
Yes. Oh yeah. Duh. Okay.
That's kind of a similar thing, right? Where it's like assassins reaching their retirement, they're getting murdered by their boss because they made a mistake or did the wrong thing. Maybe there's something there.
Awesome. And then I see Nacho's suggestion. Okay, in that case, I will chew on this and keep it going, but thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Sure. If you haven't seen Seven Psychopaths also.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it now.
Great follow-up to In Bruges by the same writer-director.
Perfect.
Cool. So I realized the notes there were a little diffuse. I was sort of saying, pick something else, kind of, a little bit, but I think you have a lot there that you just need to arrange very slightly differently, but you'll find something. I'm sure you'll settle on something unique and cool coming up.
Yeah, this is getting the gears turning, so again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. Okay, let's keep going. Get through as many as we can. We will look at Michelle, My Trip to Oz, and How I Killed the Wicked Witch of the West. Is this a PDF? Oh, it is. Okay. Are you there, Michelle? I've called on Michelle. She'll need to accept the invitation to answer questions here. If she can't accept, maybe try rejoining the chat room if you need to. You're invited to the stage. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next, but I will check back with Michelle after this one. Let's move on to Lalo, or Eduardo, with his coming-of-age movie called In Love With You.
Hey,
Hey there, can you read your logline out for us?
I'm nervous. Okay, I can read it. Well, after the pandemic, a lonely boy with isolation issues will begin his senior year of high school, falling in love with a girl who will make him feel human in the process.
All right, thanks for sharing this. So your comps are her meets Punch Drunk Love after the pandemic, a lonely boy with isolation issues. So instead of saying will begin, that's future tense, so just keep it present tense. Just say he begins his senior year of high school. And then maybe express a little more clearly for us what is the conflict here. From this logline, it doesn't sound like anything's wrong. What actually is your character struggling with? What is the challenge that he's facing?
Well, it's the capacity to connect with other people, and this girl appears and shows him that he's capable to like engage and having healthy relationships. Well, I don't know how to say it, but the idea I have is like make the protagonist idolize that girl, and to I need to clarify that conflict. Or well, right, which in a second. Is the idea of how a person that doesn't love you back make you improve in your in your way to treat the others.
Oh, she doesn't love him back?
No, she's for her. He's just a classmate.
Oh, okay. I think I may have misunderstood in that case. So, a lonely boy with isolation issues begins his... So he's falling in love with her, but the conflict is that she doesn't love him back. Okay, so he's trying to win her over?
Trying to conquer her or like having or establishing a relationship.
Okay, I see. So, I think what you need to do is, instead of saying he's falling in love with her, I think you're going to want to express what this conflict is. So, whatever specific way he's going to try to win her over, I think you need to express that in the logline. Like, in some movies, your character might try to win over the love interest by winning a battle of the bands, or by, I don't know, getting a part in a play with her, or something like that. You see what I mean? Where you just want to try to maybe find that specific method that your main character is going to use to try to impress or win over the heart of this other character. And it might also be helpful if you tell us something about her, because in a romance with two characters, if we know a little bit about both of them, it might help us envision what the different conflict scenes might be. Go ahead.
Well, my idea to this character is that she wants to be a model or like something related to arts, and he wants to be a photographer. And like they have that relationship of, well, I help you with your career, I help you with mine, but nothing else. Like that's it. And in the story, he will try to, I don't know, to be a better person, more interesting, like being less isolated to understand her, and know how he will approach to her.
So he has to kind of leave his comfort zone in order to approach her because she's more popular than he is. Is that right? Or has more friends?
Exactly.
Okay, I would try to express that in the logline
She
so
has
we
more
get
friends.
right.
Very different circle.
I see. Okay. So yeah, try to express. Try to tell us that in the logline. Try to tell us that he has to become someone else in order to be with her. He tries to join a new social group, or he has to, maybe say specifically what he has to do. He has to win this contest in order to get in with this group to hang out with her, or maybe he has to, just create this other version of himself. He has to pretend to be someone else. Try to tell us what he has to do. What is standing in the way of him actually being with her, and you'll tell us how he tries to accomplish that goal.
Okay, I will read it, I write it, or well, think it to writing and get a better luck. Like, thank you for clarifying that.
No problem. Thank you so much for sharing.
I thought that. No, thank you for giving the feedback.
All right. So, as soon as you get feedback, I would, on your sketchbook, just start writing out a new version, trying to get that finalized by the end of today, if you can. Let's move to Joel. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me check. Did Michelle come back? Michelle, I'm going to try inviting you up again. Okay, seems like maybe you're still not able to join, so I'm just going to move to Joel. Joel, are you here?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, all right, we've got a sci-fi. Why don't you read this out for us? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, sorry. Yeah. When he discovers his wheelchair as an alien, a shelter disabled boy must protect wheelchairs from genocidal aliens.
Whoa. It's like Transformers.
Yes, it is.
That
That
could be
is
one
definitely
of
one
your
of the
cops.
props.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he discovers his wheelchair is an alien. A sheltered disabled boy must help protect wheelchairs from genocidal aliens. Why does so? Is there a race of wheelchair aliens, or is this just an alien disguised as a wheelchair?
Well, this is part of the dilemma I had. I was like, how much do I want this to be like Transformers? And at what point are Transformers going to sue me? So I figured that they just look like wheelchairs, and actually, like, I started writing a bit of a backstory where they came to Earth 200 years ago, or something like that, and they were actually the inspiration behind wheelchairs, and humans creating wheelchairs.
Okay, I see. So we're saying that the aliens came first, but the designs of modern wheelchairs just happen to resemble them?
Yes.
Okay, sure, why not? I kind of like it. I mean, I especially can think of some good, you say family sci-fi, maybe comedy or drama. Are there action scenes, though?
Yes. I think so.
Okay, so I might go with sci-fi action then, because what I was imagining as what is the fun and games here is the wheelchair has rocket boosters, the wheelchair can shoot missiles, the wheelchair has a laser.
I wasn't going to.
That what we're doing?
I wasn't going to do that. I was sort of make him a bit more true to life, rather than, you know, yeah, it wasn't going to be particularly action sequences.
Okay, so wait, help me understand what the wheelchairs can do if they can't fly and shoot lasers and stuff.
Well, I mean, I feel like they're similar to humans. You know, humans don't do much. They just happen to have a metal body, that sort of thing. So they're not like, they don't have weapons attached to them or whatever. And they're quite a peaceful race, which is why they sort of left their home planet rather than trying to fight the genocidal aliens. They're a bit like what are they called? The Boo from Home.
Sorry,
Is
the
that
what?
Pixar or DreamWorks? Boo from Home.
Boo from Home.
Yeah, so it's oh, what's it called? What's it is it DreamWorks? A DreamWorks film, I think.
Somebody will
yeah,
need
that
to link
one.
it to me. Yeah, I've never heard of this.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a kids film. So I've got an echo in my ear, sorry.
That's
It's
okay.
really off-putting.
So
there
I
you
guess
go.
I guess I thought
Right,
I thought I understood.
Yeah,
to
they're a
begin with.
peaceful race.
Go ahead.
yeah, they're peaceful race, and so they've fled their home planet, and found Earth, and they thought they were safe, and now it turns out that the genocidal aliens have now found them and are coming to Earth.
Okay, can you answer this question for me though? How do we stop genocidal aliens and protect these aliens from them if we aren't using action? Like, if we aren't fighting them, how are we? What are we watching characters do in your movie?
So my internet's sort of going, so you're crossing out now. But yeah, I think it's something I need to put a lot of thought into. I've not actually seen E.T. But I would imagine it would be something like that. I've not thought about it, basically.
Okay, that's yeah. It's okay if you don't know the answers or aren't quite sure yet. My first assumption is genocide. You say your main character needs to protect something from genocidal aliens. Then my thought would be, just looking at the ingredients we have here, the wheelchairs will help him do that somehow. If that's not the case, you need to maybe figure out some other hook for what exactly this movie is, or what can the wheelchairs actually do, or what would make this. What's the hook here? I guess is the question. If you're framing this as a comedy or as a drama even, which was what you originally had under the genres, maybe you had some idea of some specific conflict that your character has to overcome or take part in order to save these wheelchairs. I mean, what is it? Like a galactic open mic? What does he have to do? We're just looking for... think specifically about how does your main character actually go about accomplishing his goal in the story, and what are the kind of premise scenes that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so I suspect it won't be an open mic, but something along those lines, or maybe like a plan to help, be like a negotiator or mediator or something like that. It might be.
Okay. Can the wheelchairs go fast?
Yeah. One of the things they can do is fly. But it's, one of the only things that they can do that normal wheelchairs can't
is fly. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant. All right. So yeah, I would just take those notes, keep that in mind, try to help us envision a bit more of what are the blockbuster moments, what are the premise scenes, what is the fun to be had here. I mean, you have the basic setup of kid meets alien, kid needs to help alien, everything's working there just fine, and the wheelchair element is funny, and I think it's very over the top, but it seems like you have a good explanation for it within the world or whatever. But yeah, try to clarify, what are we watching people do in the movie? How do they go about stopping these aliens? What is the actual plan?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we got more. We will just keep going straight through. Hope everyone is getting some good material for their loglines and is getting their questions answered, and I'll still try to take questions between loglines in the chat. So let us know. Again, if you haven't signed up yet, scriptcamp.net, you can sign up for unlimited membership, which includes access to every other class on every server that we do on Skill Camp. So novel writing, TV writing, feature writing, tons of other topics. You can sign up now yearly for just $19 a month, or enroll monthly for $29 a month. Okay, I want to check back in our chat and move on to our next logline. Let me try Michelle again. And if that doesn't work, I will move on to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to move on to next, which we have Terry. Diamonds of Sonoran. Hi, Terry. Can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I was on mute again. I apologize for that.
No problem. You're good.
So I spoke about this one a little bit with you last Sunday, but I was gonna do an adaptation of Ricky Tikki Tavi, where in that unconventional sense of flipping the story on its head. And what I have is a adventure kids and family animated film that I'm still kind of working on the title, but my logline is a pair of rattlesnakes venture across the Sonoran Arizona desert to save their children from an outlandish politician and his pet badger before they are executed at a rattlesnake rodeo.
All right. So I'm actually not familiar with the source material here, so I'm approaching this just completely blind, and as it's brand new to me. A pair of rattlesnakes venture across the Sonoran Arizona desert to save their children from an outlandish politician and his pet badger before the children, are executed at a rattlesnake rodeo. So a couple questions. One, I guess instead of saying a pair of rattlesnakes, I think you should pick a main character. So focus on one of this couple rather than saying both of them. We should... I kind of am wondering, are the animal characters able to talk to the human characters, or is this, what kind of world is this exactly? Is this one where do the humans and animals interact or no?
Not entirely. I'm treating it in the same vein as something like Finding Nemo or Back to the Outback, where you have your animal characters are able to communicate amongst each other, but that's really the extent of what they are to humans. They're just animals.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to communicate. There's like a bit of a, I guess, a block in terms of like, you can't have a human understand an animal and vice versa.
You can if it's B-movie.
You can,
but in any case, so let me ask this: is the whole movie taking place in this one trip across the desert?
Yeah, so that's the setting of the film. A lot of it would be the Sonoran Desert, for what I know, extends from Mexico, at least northwest Mexico, all the way to the bottom of Nevada. Maybe a little bit more into California as well, but that pretty much is the whole setting. The whole it's got more of that road trippy vibe. I thought Finding Nemo was like the perfect comp for it because it's very much across the Pacific Ocean.
Right. I mean, Rango might be a pretty good comp, I would think. But beyond that, it seems like you've spent quite a few words on your villains, an outlandish politician and his pet badger, but your main characters won't be able to encounter those villains because they're spending almost the entire movie in the desert. So it makes me feel like you should either reframe this as a sort of like episodic wilderness survival thriller kind of story, where you can suggest that they need to deal with things like sandstorms and treacherous predators and other things like that along the way. Or if somehow this politician and the badger are able to act against your characters along the way, then you need to reframe that so that makes sense. Do you see what I'm saying here?
I do. It's just I have set up where they're aware of when, and that's what they're trying to find. Something like a leaf letter flying out of a truck, or there's like some kind of there's something that leads them there. It's kind of like the snorkel goggles from Nemo, or the feather from Toy Story 2 that gives them the giveaway that it's Al's Toy Barn. It's something like that I guess I was leaning on in terms of like where they need to go.
Right, and... but in a logline for Finding Nemo, I wouldn't spend a bunch of words on saying this kid's been taken by a dentist and his daughter, who keeps him in a fish tank in the dentist office. I think we would focus more on when Marlin's son is taken, he has to traverse a vast ocean full of these challenges. You know what I mean? With this partner along the way.
And I think that to me, the partner thing is probably the biggest hurdle I have. I could probably cut the badger out of the log line itself. However, I think when I look at, I think I used pair rattlesnakes because it is a mother and a father, and I don't know how to, I guess, to condense that further without Do you think I should still specifically focus on one of the parents instead of two of them?
Yeah, it'll make it so much easier to do what you're talking about. I mean, if you say it's about especially if we start to understand that the conflict between them is going to be a lot of what we're watching for. I mean, think of, what is it, Marlon? He's an overprotective father and a neurotic, forgetful, I don't exactly know what her thing is. I don't know what I'd call her. But Dory is like, she's essentially a stranger with memory problems. So you need to define your central couple in such a way that we can understand why is this going to be fun to watch them. They're the ones we're going to be spending the whole movie with. So you might as well frame it as something like, when the adventurous husband and the what is it, like shy, agoraphobic wife, whatever it is that's actually comes up as a point of conflict between them, whatever makes them clash off each other and bounce off each other in interesting ways. You can frame that at the center of the narrative for sure. Especially because it's a road trip story. That's how these always work. Does that all make sense? Any questions about this one?
No, I think I'm good. But thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing, Terry. All right, let's do the Mark of the Seraphites sci-fi action. I'm not sure what this username is, but I'll invite you up. He says, I'm not able to see, no working mic. Okay, well, we're going to have to call on students that are able to answer questions about their loglines, but I can at least quickly look at yours and give you just some first read comments. So let me just take a look at the March of the Seraphites really quick. All right, sci-fi action, Transformers and Avengers are comps. A disbanded group of 8 superheroes named Seraphites. Let me paste it in here. A disbanded group of 8 superheroes named Seraphites must reunite in time to defend Earth against an alien attack from space. I think we would expect an alien attack to come from space, so you might be able to take that out. I guess I'm wondering, my main question is, what's the conflict? So what is keeping these 8 different superheroes from reuniting? We're also going to want a clearer focus on a protagonist. So this is sort of like Watchmen, perhaps, as like... or like you mentioned, Avengers. This team needs to come together. 8 characters is a huge ensemble for a movie, so that's like even bigger than Avengers, which was a very long movie. So you have a lot of work to do here, but I would still try to frame this around which character actually needs to be the one most actively gathering this team together. And then you want to say what's standing in the way. What are we actually watching your characters deal with as they try to reunite the team members? Is it that each of the team members has retired to various blue-collar jobs and now they no longer want to be heroes anymore? Then we get the idea of maybe what those different set pieces could be as your main character has to go from place to place, trying to get your characters to, I don't know, quit their jobs. That almost feels like a sort of comedy-based version of this idea. You can take it however you want, but just think, what are the actual set piece scenes? What are we watching for? And think of like, what does the main character need to do to accomplish this task? Is this just going to be him going from person to person and calling them all and being like, hey, want to join the team to save the Earth? You might need to specify what the conflict is that's stopping that from happening. Thank you for sharing the logline, though. All right, let's go to verb with Children of Lilith or Demon Rising. Hi, Verb. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Why don't you start us off with this one?
What would you like to know?
The logline, if you can read that out, please.
When a part succubus and a half angel get together, they must battle to get their families to accept not just their fledgling relationship, but must also convince them to work together. Only by using a combination of ancient technology and demon magic can they keep the faction, a clandestine demon organization, from opening the 7 seals. Should they fail, all hell will break loose, quite literally.
Right. Okay, great. So this is pretty clear. It's just a little long-worded, what is it? What do we say? Long-winded. So this is 3 sentences. I think you can fit this all into one single sentence. Let me look at your first sentence here and see if we can condense it down a little bit. So your comps are West Side Story meets Supernatural. Okay, so when a part succubus and a half angel, so you're saying one of them is part and one of them is half, which does raise a question right off the bat, but I think I'm not too confused by it. They get together, they must battle to get their families to accept not just their fledgling relationship, but convince them to work together against an army of evil demons, whatever it is, right? So I think you can kind of do a lot. Like, we don't quite need to go into as much detail about how specifically they'll use a combination of ancient technology and demonic magic. We don't need to know about the faction, probably. Oh wait, unless that's the name of the enemy. Is that the name of the enemy? Yeah, it is. Okay. So try to just get this down to one sentence. And also, I think another big question I have is this just about your characters talking? Because you framed the conflict as they have to battle to get their families to accept their relationship and convince them to work together. So is that just like we get them together in a room and we just ask them to work together? Is this like, or how specifically, I guess, would be my question?
They actually can't work together because one group can't figure out what's going on without the assistance of the other group. It's only by working together that they realize what is actually happening. So there's the resistance between the families about wanting the two to get together and to spend time together. And the day after Alistair is basically shot on the street, and they don't know whether he's the target or she's the target. They're having not necessarily an intimate moment, but just sort of a quiet moment. And she's not wearing her illusion that she always wears, and she has a bunch of rings that she wears that help her control it. And he realizes that the writing on the interior of the ring is the same writing that they've been trying to translate on this piece of ancient technology. And so unless the two groups work together, they realize that not only that, but the technology itself won't work without both angelic and demonic energy. Like one charges one section and the other charge. So they literally, none of the technology will work, and they can't even translate it without the assistance of the demons.
So is it like, in that case, your characters need to get a thing? Are they trying to retrieve something? Are they trying to go ahead?
What happens is it's a very long, complex. It's actually more of a, not so much a film as a series. So that would really be the series log line. And the group of half angels, something that belongs to their father, a piece of technology that belongs to their father, spontaneously turns on. And at the same time, there's a physical effect going on among the demons, which involves a series of nosebleeds that all of them are having simultaneously in waves coming out from a central point in terms of time, as a result of the faction's attempt to open one of the 7 seals. They do it wrong, and they basically mess up the magic, and it spreads out, and it affects all the demons for about 3,000, 4,000 miles.
Okay. So
epicenter. And so the demons are trying to trace it back to the epicenter, but they don't know exactly where that is. And unbeknownst to them, the angels actually have a thing that will track where the epicenter of the thing is going on, but don't know how to use it and don't know what it is. And it's only when the two come together that they realize that the two things are connected. What might actually be going on, and are able to track down the anomaly and take care of the situation. But initially, it's the two of them sort of going about the very different lives, but they've run into each other, they've met, and they like each other, so they keep seeing each other despite their family's objections, and they find out later that they need to work together. And of course, the families are sort of against it because angels and demons don't work together.
Right. Okay. So in re-envisioning this instead of a series as a feature, I think you need to more clearly lay out what this concrete objective is that your characters have to accomplish. So in saying they have to battle to get their families to accept their relationship, that sounds like a series of many, many, many different conflicts. Whereas if you think of a movie like Constantine, right? It's like this spear has been unearthed, and now we need to get that spear before the bad guy gets it to stop him.
Well,
Does
I'm
that make
actually
sense?
thinking-
Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm actually going to try and write it as a movie. I would rather probably try and go for a series.
Okay.
With it.
Okay. So yeah,
So-
it's looking much more like a strong series logline. So I'd recommend the pilot class for this one instead if you want to keep it in that form.
Yeah.
And come to class on Sunday, and I'll be able to give you more feedback. But this looks pretty good as a series logline.
Okay, yeah, because it is meant to be a series logline rather than an A. And I know this is supposed to be a film class, but this is the closest that I've got right now because I'm still working on the novel.
That's okay. Yeah, no problem at all. And feel free to stop by Sundays 10 to noon Pacific time, and we have TV classes that'll help you develop this more.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. All right, let's move to Shakira.
Hello. So I've been trying to kind of work on that the log line from last time. So my title is Perfect Shot. The genre is drama. So the comps is Boys in the Hood meets Music of the Heart, and the log line is an awkward student tired of art school uses city as his art class and meets unlikely students who show him the missing ingredient in his art.
All right, thanks for sharing. So I think last time in the week 0 class you had, I think, a bit of a different maybe approach to this.
It
was
yeah.
So that one involved him sort of coming up with an alternate persona to sort of convince people to be into his art. So this is a new version, is that right?
Yeah, it's a new version. I feel like, that still kind of applies, but not so much into the whole movie where he like at first he becomes like a gang member at first, and then he kind of shows himself. But I feel like this would be like a different touch to it.
Okay.
And so just to be a little bit like bare bones.
Got it. So let me ask, so just from the logline, the student uses the city as his art class and meets unlikely students who show him the missing ingredients. A lot of loglines will use this word must, like the character must do something. It's not that you have to use that word, but that word is just an easy shortcut for us to see, like, what does your character have to do? Where's the urgency?
Okay.
Like, what is the specific objective? So movies work really well. Like, and there are genres of sort of ensemble movies where, like, for instance, like Jim Jarmusch movies, or like movies like Slacker, or David Linklater movies, where it's just kind of about characters bumping into each other, having conversations and meeting people and doing stuff. It's not that you can't do that, but what I would recommend is finding a bit of a clearer, cleaner point of conflict at the center of this. So say your character is, this is like one of these cliches of this genre, but it's like, we're trying to raise money to save this art installation or this school or this library. You know what I mean? And that just gives you like a really clear, tangible goal. Whereas just in the logline here, I'm just seeing a guy kind of meets people and they hang out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so the conflict can be whatever you want it to be. And since you're in drama, it should be something realistic and relatively serious and straightforward. It doesn't have to be he's gonna die if he doesn't do it or anything like that. But if your character has something he wants pretty badly, and that thing, he's able to accomplish a version of that thing that just feels like it's complete and concrete. Like, that's why people love the Battle of the Bands storyline, or the Raise the Money to Save the Library storyline, or things like that, because it just has such a clear number on it. It's like, that is definitively done. I would try to find something like that. And it can still be in this sort of lower stakes world if you want. It should just be something your character cares about and really wants to accomplish.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on this one?
I know. I think I understand. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you say perfect shot. Does that mean he's doing photography?
Yeah. I want it to be like a little bit more broad art, but maybe it just making sure maybe photography is the thing.
Okay, so yeah, I would mention that in the logline too. Like, what specific kind of art will he be doing? Because that's going to tell us like what kind of subculture he's going to be involved in. Because different arts have very different people who are into them. Okay. So just get more specific. Find that point of conflict and find something external to kind of frame the movie around if you can.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing, Shakira.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, we have room for a couple more. We have Vincent Price's inferior twin. And we have Joya, so we're going to get to at least those two. I'll try to get to as many as I can. I'll stay a couple minutes over and try to do one or two more. Let's start with Vincent Price. Flesh, Blood, and Capes. Wow, that sounds like a unique title. Reminds me of Dracula. Are you here, Vincent? Are you in the room with us? I have requested you to speak. We can see your text message, but we cannot see your... We cannot hear you at the moment. So if you're on a device, you may need to turn it to the side or disconnect and reconnect. There you are.
Hello?
Hey there.
Can you hear me?
I hear you, yep.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. Let's get started. Why don't you read this logline out for us?
All right. Title, Flesh, Blood, and Capes, working title. Genre, heist and sci-fi horror. Comps, off the top of my head, The Boys, From Dusk Till Dawn, Dawn of the Dead. I got recommended a show called Super Crooks, but I have not seen that yet. Logline, a bumbling group of surviving supervillains attempt one last heist after all the world's heroes succumb to a cannibalistic plague.
Okay, this sounds kind of cool. A bumbling group of surviving supervillains. Sounds a little strange because you haven't told us what they're surviving to begin with, though. So my brain immediately goes, wait, what? When I start reading this. So a bumbling group of supervillains would probably be a better way to start this. But you should focus on a central start with a main character. Who is this about specifically? Who is this about? So give us that main guy. You know, a former criminal mastermind with psychic powers must lead a group of bumbling villains, something like that. They attempt one last heist after all the world's heroes succumb to a cannibalistic plague. So all the world's heroes turn into zombies and eat each other. Am I right?
Kind of, or at least eat the world. Okay. They're still running around. That's like the big hazard.
Oh, they're still out there.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So why is it one last heist? Why not just do a bunch of heists?
I guess the idea being that they are like, well, one, since, you know, there's no longer really, like, the idea of superheroes and supervillains is kind of reliant on having, like, law structures, right? There's authority, there's law, there's, like, criminal justice. Obviously, that doesn't really exist when the people enforcing that criminal justice essentially go, you know, zombie. So I guess the idea is here, it's like a last hurrah. Maybe it's an, I'm still figuring out, like, the actual motivation, but maybe it's an opportunity to just, I guess, stick it one last time and remember the old days before they all inevitably die. Since, you know, this is, you know, having, like, undead demigods running around everywhere is probably not a situation you would survive. Alternatively, it could be some sort of a MacGuffin, but I just don't want to get too tropey there. Right? Maybe it's something like, I don't know, a device that'll destroy the world and all the, like, superheroes for good, right? There's always those in, like, superhero media.
So it's cool that you have the zombies of all the heroes still running around causing chaos. That's interesting. But the fact that it's the end of days makes a heist almost meaningless. And there's no reason any of your characters could just stop and then they would be fine. So I think having purely emotional motivations to commit a high-stakes heist is not the best way to go in this case. I think maybe you might need to say there's a limited amount of time till they cure the heroes, or that until law and order is restored, because that kind of takes advantage of the fact that you have a limited time where there's no one stopping the villains from doing what they want, almost like the Purge. And that would actually add urgency to this heist and be their one big opportunity while the heroes are gone or distracted or dead or whatever, for us to actually pull this off in a limited amount of time. Does that make sense?
Right. What if the point is, you know, to just, like, take everything superpowered out with them, right? Let's say hypothetically it's like just the undead superheroes are like the big problem, right? The world is, like you said, it's the end of days. So they're thinking the only way we can do this is, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of a MacGuffin or device that will basically just instantly shut off anyone with superpowers, regardless, like dead or alive.
Oh, okay. So that makes it like a heroic heist in that case, as your heroes are trying to save the world.
Well, at least At least, you see, I'm trying to make it more like a spite, still make it more like a spite thing. Like, yes, objectively, they are doing a good thing, even if that thing kind of means death for them in either scenario. But it's still like I still want to frame it as more just like a spite thing rather than a we're gonna be heroes now thing. If that makes sense.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, maybe just take a look at the motivations of your characters, because it feels like something is just off in terms of if the world is going to be destroyed, doing a heist doesn't matter because you won't be able to spend or enjoy the results of doing the heist. And so you'll either need to build a world where order will be restored, or it needs to be not a heist, and like, or it could be like, this is our opportunity to kill all the heroes. I'm kind of with you there, but then you'll just need to frame specifically how are they going to do that in the course of your movie. So I think this is mostly going to be a motivation and objective question. The whole concept of villains need to team up in a world where heroes have turned into zombies is cool on its own, though. So I think that you'll find something.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's. We're a little over time, but I'm going to continue with just a couple more. I might not be able to get to absolutely everyone, but I will just tell everyone that we are looking to finish your log lines this week, and you're going to be filling out your sketchbook as much as you can. So you want to finalize that log line, and if I'm not able to get to it, I'm glad to reply via text in the Discord channels during the week and get you caught up. Or if you have a revised version of your logline, post that in the Future Bootcamp chat. I will give you extra feedback, and you can get that in shipshape for next week. In the meantime, you're going to also fill out that sketchbook, and you're going to read a pro script cover to cover, the entire thing, at least one. I want you to read 3, but you can get away with 1 if you must, by next week, and be ready to answer, what did I read, and what did I think of it? Just basic questions like that. Okay, that's all for next time. This is going to be next week in the same class slot, and so Fridays from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time for the rest of this session, so 7 more weeks. Okay, I'm going to call on Joya if she's still here, and then I may have time for we may have a question from Dan too, actually, so I'll take Dan's question. Maybe he has a log line to share. If he does, then I'm glad to look at his and Joya's as our last 2 for today.
Oh, hello?
Hey, Joya.
Hey. Yeah, well, I had put mine up, but then when you put up, what's her name? Shakira's? I guess my question there was, because what was showing on the screen was not what you were reading. So then I started wondering, no, it, as far as the log line. So.
Do you see this one here? This one's yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's mine. But I was just wondering if I was.
Yeah, this was Shakira's perfect shot. We did that one. Okay, let's go into yours.
All right. Yeah, because her story kind of interested me. I don't remember it from last week. But yeah, so I was like, I'm not seeing the same thing. Anyway, I was my genre and comps, I'm not quite sure if they're on point or not. So, yeah.
That's okay. Why don't you read the logline for us out loud?
When God summons a humble sheep herder to kill his teenage son, he must tackle perilous peaks, wild animals, and a treacherous rainstorm to reach the summit in 3 days, or else face divine wrath.
Great. I think, shepherd might just be a bit of an easier word than sheep herder. I think we all kind of get what this means. To kill his teenage son. Not that it matters that much. I mean, I think sheep herder means the same thing. But to kill his teenage son, he must tackle perilous peaks, wild animals, and treacherous rainstorm to reach the summit in 3 days, or else face divine wrath. Okay. Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is pretty much just a straight adaptation of the Abraham story, it sounds like. You're framing Abraham as the hero or as the lead, so you're just going to have to, in a story sense, kind of justify what he's doing. Maybe you're going to have to show that meeting with God and show that he truly believes it, show that, he has this very strong internal battle that we're going to see illustrated externally over the course of these 3 days. I think this logline might be working fine. Let me just ask, what's his relationship like with his son?
Oh, it's like he loves his son. He loves his son. He waited like 100 years to get him. So this is like the last thing he's trying to hear. The last thing he would want to do.
Oh, okay. So it's his
yeah.
beloved son. It's his son that they have a great relationship, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I see what it is. I see the movie. I like how you've kind of framed these 3 obstacles they'll run into. We have these 3 days that it'll take. I don't know if that's how the original story went, if it was 3 days or whatever, but that just works well for this. I think you've got something here. Yeah, just if you can, just clarify that relationship between them. If that's going to be a big source of the conflict, if they're estranged or something, it's like a different story than if they have a great relationship at the beginning. So you can add in just a little bit about that. But beyond that, I think this is looking good.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure if my comps. Okay, so the first comp is the world that they're in. It's kind of that same Noah, olden times world, and I guess like the whole psychological part was buried or misery. I couldn't really think which way to go.
Buried seems like the wrong comp to me, just because your movie is a wilderness survival kind of movie, it sounds like, and Buried is all taking place with one guy in a box with a phone, so there's not much in common between them besides the tone. Misery you can go with for now. I would just look for movies about people in the wilderness together going up against the kinds of obstacles that your characters are going to be going up against. Maybe
like
even
The Revenant
movies like...
or something like that?
Which one?
The Revenant.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Is this historical or modern day?
It's historical.
It's historical. Okay, yeah. Then you can use historical movies as comps in that case. You might look at mountain climbing movies too, things like K2 or Vertical Limit.
Okay. Okay, let's see.
There's just some ideas for comps, but I think the idea is really solid.
Okay.
Thanks, Joya.
Thanks. Hold on.
Oh, hold on. I'll bring you back up. Sorry, I put you back in the audience. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm good now.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Joya. All right, we have Dan as our last... Is Dan still here? Dan, do you want to read your logline?
Sure.
All right.
I lost my place on it. Shoot. Did
That's
you
okay,
copy?
I have it here.
You could.
All right, a historical
Cadet.
drama.
Historical drama. Comps, Lords or Labria, and I don't know what else yet. But logline: when a Hittite soldier gets volunteered to deliberately get captured by the Egyptian army, he must convince the Egyptians that his false information is true to spare his life as well as that of his fellow soldiers.
Singular soldier or plural soldier?
It should be soldiers is, I think I meant to do. But autocorrect and all that.
His fellow soldiers, plural soldiers left. Okay.
No autocorrect.
Okay. So when a Hittite soldier gets volunteered to get deliberately captured, just kind of two gets right in a row, just kind of made me trip a little bit reading this. Gets volunteered.
I suppose he is volunteered then.
So he's forced into this job, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to make it sound a little snappy, less like, you know what I mean? Voice.
Right. I see what you mean. Okay, so deliberately captured by the Egyptian
Gets
army.
volunteered to become a deliberate capture. Something like that. Become a deliberate prisoner.
He's sort of becoming a reluctant saboteur in a way, isn't he? Or is sort of becoming a spy.
This is based on really something that happened.
Okay, so yeah, maybe if you can frame it in those terms, he becomes a reluctant what do we call it? Maybe there's a better word than saboteur. Spy.
Infiltrator?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, it's definitely, if I wanted it to be a very direct, it would be a false informant.
Yeah, I think that can work. So this is espionage stuff, but is this kind of a antiquity world that we're in here? Are you saying Hittites? I'm not actually sure exactly.
Very.
Go ahead.
Very antiquity. People aren't even riding horses directly yet.
Oh wow. Okay, so this is quite ancient.
There's still horses. They're just chariots. Everything is chariots.
Okay. So describe your character with an adjective. So if you start with like, is he the last guy we'd ever expect to succeed at this job? If that's the case, then we want to know why. Is he scrawny? Is he weak? Is he cowardly? Why is he someone who has to be volunteered for this? Or maybe he has some special skill. Maybe he's very charismatic and he's good at tricking people and he's good at convincing people of stuff. Just describe your character a little bit. He must convince them that his false information is true to spare his life as well as his fellow soldiers, meaning that the stakes are what exactly? That the Egyptian army is about to like destroy their
annihilate the Hittite army. Yes.
Just the army or their home itself?
I haven't really thought that far ahead with this
That's
thing
okay.
that I
Yeah,
just
you
thought
don't
of.
have to...
I really just wanted to tell a story in this time period.
Okay, you don't have to know the answers now, but just be thinking the stakes are different if they are I need to protect my fellow soldiers versus I need to protect my home village or whatever it is. That is just going to be motivating your character differently, and also telling us what they're like. What is the urgency behind their quest? So he has to convince them that the false information is true. So I guess I would just ask, what is the movie besides just a guy in a cage talking to his captors? And you could potentially get a compelling movie out of that in like a sort of 12 Angry Men type setup. But let me just ask, did you have more in mind?
At the moment, I hadn't. Perhaps there's also cuts to the battle. There's actually a point where they learn that his information isn't true. So there's probably a daring escape.
I would maybe ask, does he have to take on some kind of... go ahead.
Reconnect with his fellow... What?
I just had a suggestion. I was thinking, if he has to take on some kind of specific job for them, like rather than just saying, hey, I'm a soldier for our side, I have some info for you. If it was more like he's like, I'm going to become your local guide, maybe then you could have a good excuse for him to have to get out of the cage and out of the prison and actually go around and do stuff.
All right, that's an idea.
Just a suggestion. You don't have to use that, but I would try to, if you want him actually going around doing stuff and not just having it mostly be a movie about a guy being interrogated in a dungeon, then we should just have that sense of what kind of adventures is he going to be having? What is he going to be out and doing?
Excuse me. All right.
Any questions on this one?
No, I just need more time with it.
Yeah, no problem.
Than just literally 10 minutes so far.
It's all good. Yeah, you might want to clarify, is this going to be, because you say historical drama, it might be sort of more sword and sandal adventure.
I don't want to call it pop history because most people don't even know who the heck these people are.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not exactly going to use a real name because the names of the spies that were deliberately sent to be captured are forgotten.
Sure.
Even though this is the first ever battle that was that had historical records and archiving by both sides.
Gotcha. Okay, so those are all very cool details, and I hope these notes have given you some ideas just how to shape the story a little bit, maybe suggest what the primary action is going to be and what we're watching the character do, and how we can just describe your character a little more and give us a bit of a sense of what's at stake here.
All right.
Thank you for sharing. Hope that was helpful. And that's going to bring us to the end of this Feature Bootcamp class. Again, your goal for next time, finish and finalize that logline, paste it in the Feature Bootcamp chat by next week if you want to get that feedback, or you can use the feedback channel if you are not a member. And you should read a script from the blacklist and fill out that sketchbook as much as you can. There's no right or wrong things to include in the sketchbook. It's just going to be all of your ideas all in one place. Try to have that logline totally finished this week. And if you finish the script and you have a lot of time to spare, read another one and read more. We hope to see you guys soon. Remember, scriptcamp.net to sign up. You can sign up for unlimited by clicking Enroll Now on the main page. Get access to every single class and event that we do here, including our classes tomorrow, 10 to 12 tomorrow. We have pilot class. And then we have these boot camps that will be persisting for the next 8 weeks for feature, 6 weeks for TV, and we'll have novels starting in August. Thanks a lot, guys. We hope to see you guys soon at your next Script Camp class or event. Have a great rest of your day.